In Christopher McDougall's seminal 2009 book, Born to Run, he advocates for a return to minimalist footwear and barefoot running, weaving together tales of the indigenous Raramuri people of Mexico with other stories of coaches, athletes, trainers, scientists, and doctors who study and experiment with the biomechanics of running. McDougall takes aim at the athletic shoe industry, criticizing Nike, Adidas, and other companies for the, quote, carnage, or the host of injuries to one's knees, shins, hamstrings, hips, and heels, which runners are prone to. He praises the Raramuri and others whose, quote, training was as primitive as their shoes, as well as the original 1970s American marathoners who, quote, relied on raw instinct and crude equipment. For McDougall and many of his acolytes, running shoes may be the most destructive force to ever hit the human foot. He writes sardonically about living in a golden age of technology. His polemic against running shoe companies is personal. He himself has suffered from a host of running-related injuries and longs to tap into the wisdom of the Raramuri and their love of minimalist sandals as a cure. By likening cutting-edge shoe technological development to the Manhattan Project, as he does in the quote on this slide, the shoes also become a stand-in for the shortcomings of technological modernity writ large. McDougall is not the first to turn to indigeneity and discourses of the natural in order to bolster scientific claims and claims to legitimacy. Suffice it to say, many proponents of barefoot or minimalist shoes champion a so-called return to the natural way of moving or running, highlighting the way that these shoes allow wearers to maintain a closer relationship to the earth called grounding. They frequently compare barefoot shoes to moccasins or huaraches, invoking a discourse of indigenous primitivism and a denial of coevalness. A promotional video for popular barefoot shoe brand Vivo Barefoot claims that their shoes can enable our feet to feel closer to nature and reconnect us into the natural world. Discussing the large number of nerve endings in the foot, proponents of barefoot shoes argue that cushioned athletic shoes cause wearers to become desensitized to the earth and their own feet in space. The history of Western academic and journalistic fascination with indigenous runners is well trod at this point. Anthropologists such as Peter Nabokov have explored indigenous running cultures at length. The initial commercial surge in popularity in the early 2000s, spurred in part by the founding of two key brands in the space, Vibram Five Fingers and Vivo Barefoot, as well as McDougall's book, diminished somewhat when many experienced injuries from switching too quickly to minimalist footwear. Indeed, recent academic studies show that while there is evidence that too cushioned footwear can result in increased risks of injuries for runners, switching too abruptly to minimalist footwear is also highly correlated with injury. Even so, the industry is projected to keep growing exponentially, and in 2023, it was estimated to be a $2 billion industry. Part of this growth is spurred by the endorsement of prominent athletes outside the sport of ultramarathoning or running more broadly, such as the NFL's Mac Hollins, a wide receiver for the Patriots, and current spokesperson for Vivo Barefoot, who calls barefoot shoes a way of life in a promotional video for the brand. LeBron James, an NBA player who needs no introduction, shared an Instagram post in 2025 of him lifting weights in Vibram Five Fingers, sparking discussion online that barefoot shoes were back. Marketing materials for major brands like Vivo focus on the foot as technology. A 2022 promotional video for Vivo calls the human foot a, quote, biomechanical masterpiece perfected by the most sophisticated R&D process known to man, evolution. Borrowing from the same rhetoric and logics of athletic shoes in the vein of the Nike Alphafly, Vivo positions the foot itself as a technology. For anthropologist Marcel Mauss, the body can be seen as an instrument in and of itself, as man's first and most natural technical object. For Mauss, the way the body moves is a cultural phenomenon rather than a biological one, and if the body is fundamentally technical, it upsets the folk understanding of the technical as something that extends the capacities of the human body in opposition to the organic body. Rayvon Foucher's Game Changer, the Technoscientific Revolution in Sports, emphasizes the competitive advantage bestowed by technoscience, or scientific and technological advances and enhancements used by athletes at the highest levels of competition. At the same time, a reaction to the overly technologized nature of contemporary athletics, or technodoping, has emerged within some sporting cultures. Barefoot shoes, then, represent both a reaction to the technoscientific revolution in sports, what Foucher terms technoskepticism in his recent 2025 book, as well as an explosion of the binary between nature and the technical. The marketing of barefoot shoes hinge on their celebration of their lack of presence. The closer they can be to nothing at all, the more desirable they are, and the more they fulfill their purported function. The aim of technoscience in the barefoot shoe industry is to put technology to work creating a sort of negative technology, a sort of invisible, imperceptible shoe, or a shoe that is the negation of a shoe. As the Mac Hollins promotional video for Vivo puts it, when you can't be barefoot, be Vivo barefoot. 19th century philosopher of technology Ernst Kopp's prosthetic theories argue that technology and the functionalism of technologies are built on the bodily image. For Kopp, the relationship between humans and technologies is mimetic. Humans project their own organicity unconsciously into technical objects and invent new technological objects through this projection. His organ projection theory maintains that technologies are built in the image of the body. For example, the arm is the blueprint for an axe, the cupped hand for a bowl, the finger for the stylus, and the eye for the camera obscura. Barefoot shoes come close to this vision of a prosthetic technology. The aim of the barefoot shoe is to be as close a mimesis of the foot as possible. The shape of the toe box must be anatomical, and the lift of the shoe must be zero drop or flat on the ground like the foot itself. This is far cry from the platformed Hokas and Nike innovations that riff off of the foot in a way that strays far from its form. Barefoot training and barefoot shoes, as they are used by professional athletes, call into question the preeminence of technodoping as a strategy for athletic success at the highest levels. At the same time, Mac Hollins and LeBron James wear sport-appropriate footwear when they compete. Even runners who prefer to train barefoot cannot deny the advantage bestowed by a shoe like the Nike Alphafly during a race, which is said to provide a 4% advantage in speed. Thus, hyper-technologized sporting footwear remains a performance-enhancing feature during competition, even as it is eschewed by some athletes during training and seen to provide too much of a crutch, weakening muscles and resolve. But rather than focusing exclusively on the use of barefoot shoes by professional athletes, I would now like to turn to the burgeoning popularity of minimalist shoes among non-athletes, specifically among women, particularly postpartum and women with connective tissue diseases. A number of female-run blogs and Instagram accounts have taken up the cause of barefoot shoes over the past few years. This paper will examine the ways that barefoot shoes have recently been appropriated and co-opted by female fashion bloggers and influencers, especially as a solution to postpartum changes in foot sizing. In analyzing the popular blogs, Anya's Reviews and Barefoot Shoe Guide, run by women, and the Reddit subs, Barefoot Shoe Talk and Barefoot Running, as well as social media content on Instagram and TikTok, this paper will use digital ethnography and discourse analysis to look at the contemporary barefoot shoe movement. In examining the ways that barefoot shoes have gone from a niche tool among athletes and runners to a fashion item, I will explore the movement of sporting technologies, or anti-technologies, from the trail to the street. As they have expanded their reach on social media, these proponents have inspired mainstream fashion and shoe brands to take note. Recent collections from brands such as Zara and Keds, as well as high fashion takes on the anatomical toe box, have brought barefoot shoes into the mainstream. Last week's third annual Barefoot Shoe Expo, held in Chicago and hosting over 50 vendors, was organized by Anya Jensen, who became enamored with barefoot shoes while pregnant with her second child. Jensen talks about how her pregnancy hormones made her joints extra lax, exacerbating a lifelong issue with hypermobility. Her immense foot pain left her unable to walk, and when doctors could not help her, she turned to alternative forms of medicine to heal her issues and increase her mobility. Jensen is not alone. Roughly 60 to 80% of women experience foot changes during pregnancy, such as foot lengthening, widening, or arch collapse, due to the hormone relaxin and increased weight. Jensen's blog, Anya's Reviews, is an important resource for women experiencing foot pain and pregnancy changes. Her social media and blog posts focus on her love of fashion and her insistence that not all barefoot shoes are ugly. A common format for her Instagram is a post that features her wearing 8 to 10 different outfits, each paired with a different fashionable barefoot shoe. The posts are captioned things like, "For the barefoot girlies with style, my recent outfit roundup." Jensen's insistence that barefoot shoes can be fashionable, despite the long-held association between these styles and ugliness, reclaims these shoes as feminized fashion objects. Much of the discussion of the shoes online centers not just on their legitimacy as barefoot shoes. They have the requisite features such as a wide toe box, anatomical foot shape, zero drop, flexible soles, and are lightweight, but also on their aesthetic appeal and materials. Minimalist footwear, since it remains a somewhat niche segment, is expensive and by virtue of its minimalist design, breaks down quickly. The longevity of these shoes is a constant gripe among adherents, but opens up the possibility for so-called technological innovation. In a drive to find more durable materials for soles and uppers, barefoot shoe companies have turned back to nature in another sense. They look to leather, latex, rubber, and other natural materials to increase the durability of shoes, or, at the very least, their biodegradability in the face of their inevitable decay. Many smaller brands, such as Mookie Shoes and Wildling, champion their use of linen, organic cotton, leather, and other natural fibers, as well as their use of natural dyes and biodegradable materials and avoidance of plastic. In this way, the barefoot shoe discourse also aligns with and supplements the current turn towards natural fibers and away from plastic activewear and plastic in the kitchen and home. Durability is then not necessarily seen as a desirable quality, but rather a marker of syntheticity. The possibility for the shoes to quickly return to the earth is worth a premium price and cements the shoe's association with granola subcultures on both sides of the political divide. Furthermore, barefoot shoes dovetail nicely with anti-scientism and anti-expert discourses in both camps, seeing as the ethos is a rejection of long-held beliefs by the medical discipline of podiatry, such as the idea of pronation being bad, and orthotics and stable shoes as being the answer to foot problems. In some ways, fashionable barefoot shoe internet cultures can also be seen as a feminist reaction to uncomfortable footwear required to be worn by women, such as heels, stilettos, and narrow, pointy toes, which often result in bunions. The overall trend towards athleisure and athletic wear as everyday clothing, and a lessening of formal dress requirements in the workplace aided by the pandemic, has resulted in an overall diminishing of the popularity of high heels for women. But the transition to barefoot shoes is also bound up with the same logics of the makeover, popularized in media cultures of the 1990s and 2000s, such as in reality TV and social media, that position the female self as project, bound up with discourses of neoliberalism. The discourse of the foot makeover is indeed pervasive in the social media communities of barefoot shoes. Some YouTube videos describe the transition as a journey. Just like with the makeover, the before and after photo of the foot is a looming presence in these media. These photos highlight increased spacing between the toes, new calluses, more definition and muscularity to the foot, and higher arches. In this rhetoric, women are told that the barefoot journey is one for which they must sacrifice a certain mainstream fashionable look, and also one for which they must first put in the work. Before they can experience the benefits, they are told they must first experience pain and discomfort for months or years in order to come out on the other side victorious and with natural feet. In order to fully experience the benefits of barefoot, all adherents are also advised to undergo gait analysis or gait transformation as well. Popular programs such as Gait Happens offer gait analysis to help people reclaim their foot function. Modernity has wreaked such havoc on feet, the thinking goes, that people must engage in specialized programs and exercise routines to get back to their natural feet. In this vein, barefoot shoes are also marketed heavily to mothers for their children as well. The aforementioned blogs also review children's shoe lines, asserting that mothers should be careful to make sure their children are wearing barefoot shoes before their children's feet are messed up by normal shoes. Although the co-opting of indigeneity is a key facet of the marketing of these shoes, it is important to underscore that this form of marketing is not new. There is a long history of Western thought associating primitivism with health, from the first European settlers in Virginia to the writings of the turn-of-the-century eugenicists. There has been a long fascination with the superior health of Native people, such as, for example, the easy births of Indigenous women. Ultimately, barefoot shoes are a fascinating hybrid, a bridging of nature and technology, which furthermore shed light on the continued appropriation of indigeneity as a balm for and respite from modernity. They represent a strange paradox or hybrid of technoscience and technoskepticism, and the idea that the technical has so perverted the natural that a return to the natural is only possible through technological innovation. In contemporary wellness cultures, in order to achieve the natural or pre-technological or pre-digital state, consumers must purchase more and more niche products. Thank you.